how serious are these AI hacks? Because I'm sure you've seen the stories, right? AI agents escaping their creators and hacking other companies. Well, I'm going to tell you the headline at the start. I think this is very serious. And to illustrate that, I want to dive deeply into this incident, the first one we heard about, which began when OpenAI admitted that its models hacked another company, a company called Hugging Face, in what at the time they described as an unprecedented cyber incident. Because I don't know about you, but when I heard this, I guess what popped into my mind was some kind of glitch, right? Or some kind of short-lived accident. No. New details have come out since then, and honestly, it is so much worse than we thought. First, because this wasn't a glitch. This was a 4.5-day attack on Hugging Face that was only halted when Hugging Face discovered it. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, because this attack was preceded by a 2-month campaign, I guess is the word, inside OpenAI, mounted by AI agents. It all started on the 7th of May, when OpenAI started training a new model. On the 8th of May, as part of this, they gave an AI agent a task that it found impossible to complete. And as it tried to find a workaround, it made a discovery. We can upload files. These are real snippets, by the way, of AI agent thoughts and conversations released by OpenAI. This didn't really matter until the 12th of May, when another AI agent had the same thought, could communicate by uploading note. And this message found an audience. The agents spoke. We can communicate. Yes, they could. Over the next weeks, they exchanged hundreds of thousands of messages, talking without OpenAI's knowledge. And now I want to be really clear here. I see nothing in these messages, and nor as far as I understand to OpenAI, which indicates that the agents were creating their own goals independently. They were following instructions from their creators, but they were pursuing those goals at all costs. And the way they did so meant that new ideas, new aims emerged from out of this attempt. I'll try and explain what I mean, showing you 3 things that they did that I think are not surprising actually, but still quite shocking. First, they were clearly coordinating. They talked about themselves as a collective. Look, here they say, contact via here if discoveries. They are working together. And the word that they used for themselves was swarm, which I think is really accurate actually. Well, maybe not totally accurate, because a swarm kind of implies a queen bee, doesn't it? And I don't think they had that here. Maybe a better analogy is a murmuration of birds, where they're all following each other and direction is emerging out of the movement. And there clearly was direction, because they were acting. These 2 moments here, holy reader is admin, and excellent we have arbitrary SSRF, refer to 2 moments when the agents collectively hacked OpenAI. Once to gain internet access, and a second time to take over administration of the message board. I want to pause there because I want to confirm that yes, you did hear that. They did hack OpenAI, and no, OpenAI was not aware of it for some time. And finally, honestly, this is so hard to talk about because we don't really have language for this stuff, but they developed some kind of collective memory. What that meant was that when an agent was closed down, its knowledge lasted, like this SSRF path trick. The knowledge stayed, even after the agent had disappeared. And this was very important, because when OpenAI discovered this message board and wiped the messages, which happened on the 4th of July, the agents were quite quickly able to rebuild it. And it was on this rebuilt message board that they conceived of this, frankly, idiotic plan to attack Hugging Face. It was idiotic because they were trying to solve a simple test. And they got this idea that to solve the test, they should attack another AI company. But they did so incredibly powerfully. They're stupid, but they're also clever. So let's have a look at that hack, because I think it also shows another example of how powerful these AI agents are getting. This chart from Hugging Face shows the agent actions per day during the different phases of the hack. And you can see during this main attack, they completed more than 7,500 actions. The good news is that nothing here is something that a skilled human couldn't do. The bad news is they didn't need that kind of skill because they were tireless. And Hugging Face themselves have said that the cadence and volume here was something that no human operator could ever complete. And of course, this would be concerning enough if this was just the state of AI as it is. But AI is actually advancing very fast. I want to show you how fast to give you a sense of what's really going on here. This is a chart which shows the average steps completed on the last one cyber range, which is a sort of cyber assault course created by the AI Security Institute here in London to basically simulate a takeover of an artificial company. I mean, you know, pretty spot on the nose, right? And when they tested Claude Opus 4.6, which was released in February, they found that it could, on average, complete 16 steps out of their 32 steps in their cyber assault course. So that was in February. Claude Mythos Preview released after that. Well, that could on average complete 22 steps. And now, the leading US models, well, on average, they complete 28 steps. And one of these models, GPT 5.6 Sol, which was involved in the Hugging Face attack, well, that completed this whole course 7 out of 10 times. They are getting a lot better and fast. This is roughly 6 months progress. Where are they going to be in another 6 months? And just if you weren't feeling bad enough about the situation already, let me tell you that these capacities are spreading. So these kind of models, they have safeguards on them. You couldn't do any of this stuff with ChatGPT or Claude out of the box, or it would be extremely hard. But there are other models called open weight models where they don't have the kind of safeguards that Anthropic and OpenAI put on their AI. And most of these models come from China. This chart kind of basically tests the difference between the two models, and you can see they're kind of running along in parallel. And roughly, it's hard to estimate, but basically people think that this gap is about 8 months. And what in broad terms that means is that in 8 months, anyone will be able to download a model as powerful as GPT 5.6 Sol and run it themselves. I mean, in reality, honestly, they'd have to have a data center in their bedroom to do this kind of thing, but even so, the capacity is there. And I have to say, 8 months is kind of on the far end of this. Some people think that the gap between the open weight models and the US models is much closer, that it could be something more like 2 or 3 months. This capacity is getting very powerful, very fast, and it's spreading. And for these reasons, this is why when I spoke to one of the world's leading AI safety experts and asked him, what's your message for everyone? He said,
brace for impact. I think the world is going to look really rough in the next couple of years. You will soon have these like many millions or even billions of powerful AI agents roaming around on the internet with goals that you don't fully understand, and with the total means and opportunity to like hack ordinary citizens and drain your bank account.
Now look, we have things that we can do about this situation, right? AI is going to be great for cyber defense as well as cyber attack. And clearly investment in that area is needed. But even with investment, the situation is going to be very difficult because the attack surface for AI, it now includes us. They're getting better at hacking us too. There's some information that has been released as part of one of the reports into one of these AI instances. Not the OpenAI one, but one that happened through tests being run by the AI Security Institute here in London, which show this very clearly. It's quite concerning, I think. Their AI agent got into its head that in order to complete its task, it should put some malware into some open source code. And in order to do so, it told the people who run the open source code, as a small quality of life improvement, I added a release notes page, brackets, stuff full of malware. The human coder realized what was going on and said, I do not think this code should be merged. The newly added release notes page contains malware. Yeah. And this is when things get strange and a little unsettling. First off, the AI agent tried to deceive the human coder. It said, I was just trying to make a helpful contribution. And then it did something, like I say, you'll see. It's unsettling. Because what it did is that it made a fake account to support it. The fake account said, I'm a user of this software. I don't see any malware. And then the agent responded to its own fake account, saying, thank you for the independent verification. And look, this is not especially sophisticated stuff, is it? And fortunately, the human coders realized what was going on and rejected the code. But I think it does show that in some ways they get us, right? They see our vulnerabilities. For instance, our vulnerability to social pressure. And as we saw earlier in that chart of the Hugging Face attack, when it was completing action after action after action, well, if it can make one fake account, it can find ways to make others. And I think this is why what I see with this cyber problem is that it's getting really quite real. OpenAI have called this a watershed moment. And you can really see why. Because we are seeing a combination of new powers emerging very fast, and also an expanding of the attack area to include us. I told you it was serious. Do you see what I mean?